Can you see yourself as the successful law firm owner with Wendy Witt? Episode 67. Are you ready to make your law firm a profit-generating machine that will free up your time and skyrocket your impact? With more than 2 decades of business growth experience and having proven that you can be successful while prioritizing your family and your impact, introducing the Profit with Law podcast. I am your host, the creator of the Firm Differentiator 10X Effect, Moshe Amsel. Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Profit with Law. I am your host, Moshe Amsel, and you're in for a treat today because we have a guest interview. I love guest interviews, and from the feedback that I'm getting from my listeners, I know that you love guest interviews too. My guest today is Wendy Witt. Now, Wendy Witt is a law firm business strategist. She's the founding owner of $1 Million Attorney. And Wendy is a former trusts and estates attorney and senior executive. Her mission is to tilt the legal universe towards wellness, and she does that by partnering with the owners of solo and small firms to create the law firm that gives them the life they love. Wendy serves as a law firm business strategist, certified success principles trainer, and mindset mentor to entrepreneurial lawyers. And yes, she creates $1 million law firms when that's her client's goal. And we're going to talk about that in depth in this interview. And I'm super excited about this interview because we had a wonderful conversation and went to a bunch of topics that I don't talk about enough on this podcast, and I'm going to be getting into those areas a lot more because I think it's important. I think it's an area that people are afraid to talk about, and I'd love to get involved more in that conversation. So this conversation with Wendy goes all over the place. I'm going to give you some of the highlights here so that I can whet your appetite and excite you about the prospect of sticking through until the end of the interview. We cover fear, dealing with fear, talking about what kinds of fear law firm business owners are facing. We cover mindset, positive and confident mindset. We cover reducing stress and simplifying your life, living and being in the state where you want to go. We talk about money. How do you view money? What is your take on money and the way you act with money, how that affects your ability to succeed. We talk about what does success and happiness mean to you, and what is your purpose of life. And finally, one of the things we cover is visualizing yourself in the moment of success. And this is just chock full of golden nuggets throughout this interview from both sides of the coin, if I might say so. We both were really on fire with what we were sharing, and it was just such a wonderful conversation. So I'm really excited to hear your feedback and to share this with you and let you experience it yourself. Now, before I do that, I just want to mention real quick, if you've been working to grow your firm for a while now and things are not happening as fast as you want, I'd like to help you create a major business breakthrough. Now, here's the story. I have been talking about these free law firm expansion coaching sessions that I'm offering, absolutely free, no strings attached. And there's literally only 2 or 3 spots left on my calendar by the time you're listening to this, because I'm just going to mid-March, and then I'm no longer offering, at least for the time being, these free coaching sessions. So if you want to take advantage of a law firm expansion coaching session where we'll work together to create a crystal clear vision for your ultimate law firm success and the perfect lifestyle that you'd like your firm to provide for you. We'll talk about and we'll uncover hidden challenges that may be sabotaging the growth of your firm and keeping you working too many hours. This is something that So many people have shared with me they're working on the weekends, they're working late at night, and they just want their life back. They just want to live a normal life. They want the law firm to be producing that for them. And finally, you'll leave this session renewed, re-energized, and inspired to turn your firm into a highly profitable revenue-generating machine that practically runs itself. Now, if you have doubts about whether I can help you do that in 90 minutes, then take me up on the offer. Book the call, and let's have that conversation, because you'll be surprised at how far we can get in doing all these things in 90 minutes. It's totally free. All you got to do is go to profitwithlaw.com/free coaching, profitwithlaw.com/free coaching, book your call, and let's have that discussion. So now I want to do something that I've never done before, and that is I want to share a review or so you can rate and review the show, and I'd like to encourage more people to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start giving shout outs to people who rate and review the show. So recently we got a review from AB Fan 1972, and they gave us 5 stars and said, "I always learn something on this podcast. Thanks, Moshe. Very helpful always." I don't know who AB Fan 1972 is, but I would love to know who you are, because I'd love to thank you for your rating and review. You can send an email to info@dreambuilderfinancial.com. Let us know who you are, and I'd love to send you something in return. So if anybody else is really enjoying the podcast and would be kind enough to leave us a rating and review, that would be very much appreciated, and I'd love to get that feedback from you. So now, without further ado, I want to bring in Wendy and that interview with her. You guys are in for a treat. Sit back, enjoy the show, and I'll see you next week on our next episode. Here we go. Wendy, I am so happy to have you here today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here for sure.
Awesome. So Wendy, I like to start interviews with getting to know you a little bit. For those people who are listening that have never heard of you before, and even those who have and just don't know your backstory and how you got to where you are, would you mind sharing your journey a little bit and just tell us about yourself and how you ended up starting Million Dollar Attorney and what that journey has looked like?
I'd love to. Thank you for the opportunity. So I was a trust and estates attorney for 15 years and enjoyed and was inspired by the impact that I could have. And over time, I looked for more and more ways to have impact. And I found that along the journey, if I shared my challenges, my setbacks, and what I learned from them, more importantly, along the journey, then I could empower more people to be successful and help more people. So while I love the practice of law, I was very intrigued by the business of law. I still see owning your own law firm or participating in a law firm as 2 different professions. The business aspect and the legal substantive law practicing aspect. And you can't really have one without the other. If you don't have that substantive expertise, you're not serving your clients. And if you're not successful in your business, you're also not serving your clients. If your business isn't there 3, 5, 10, 20 years down the road when your clients come back and need you, or their family members come back and need you, then you're missing out on an opportunity to serve. And so in about 2010, I started looking for ways to help attorneys outside my own firm. How can I help them avoid the pitfalls that I had fallen under, the quicksand of launching a law firm, but having no idea what that meant other than marketing? There's a lot more to it, running a law firm than just marketing. And I was puttering along and seeing how the impact was able to increase. And then I had the serendipitous event to meet the owner or the CEO of a major attorney organizations here in the States. I actually got through those conversations and some other recommendations. I got a call out of the blue 2014, beginning of 2014, and said, "Hey, Wendy, would you consider this?" So it was a really interesting opportunity, because then I had the opportunity, could I either stay practicing law and help a few other attorneys along the way, or could I give up practicing law and help thousands upon thousands and thousands of attorneys, and so on and so on. And it was not easy, because we all self-identify with our careers, but I took that leap and I joined that corporate organization and served on the senior executive team, where I was able to develop practice plans and educational modules and mindset opportunities for members to learn. And it really grew from there. When I was done with corporate and thought, you know what, this working for myself is dynamite, I really took on owning the business of law and looking for ways that I could leverage and be exponentially helpful and serve.
Now, just a point of clarification. So, when you were approached by this person with an opportunity that basically had you give up your law practice, was that founding $1 Million Attorney? Is that what we're talking about, or was that a stepping stone still to $1 Million Attorney?
It was another stepping stone. I believe everything in life is a stepping stone, but you're right.
Of course.
It was a large attorney corporation and association. And there I learned more and more about business, and had the opportunity to work with 4,500 attorneys. Mm-hmm. And then when I came out of that experience, I had really kind of done what I could do there and was ready to be my own, create my own destiny again, as opposed to being employed. Then that's when I went through the iterations of what now is $1 Million Attorney.
Now, did you see gaps in the process and in what was being taught at this other place that propelled you to say, hey, I can do this better? Like, other than working for yourself, what was the gap or lack of fulfillment there that had you start $1 Million Attorney? Because I personally, I see a lot of gaps in the marketplace when there are coaching organizations, training organizations, teaching people how to run a successful law practice. And I'm curious if you saw similar gaps. That's why I'm asking.
In retrospect, yes. When I was there, it's more that people have different priorities of what they think is important. So yeah, so I would call those gaps. Mm-hmm. This organization where I was on the corporate board it's a fantastic organization. It's in community, education, software, and so forth. And practice development was a part of that. Mm-hmm. I believe that practice development, mindset development, the financial organization, the goal setting, the operation systems, all those things, they are, I'm going to say, equally as important as the substantive law.
Absolutely.
You just can't have one without the other.
Right.
And what's really fun now is I'm able to expand into, because that was an estate planning organization, because that was my background. That's what I knew. That's what I did. Those are the firms I developed. But now, since then, I've been able to develop, because I work with, it doesn't matter the practice area, because I'm not teaching somebody substantive law. Mm-hmm. The underlying business is the same. right?
Right.
It has the same issues, same challenges, same opportunities. So
Absolutely.
now I really can see, wait, Wendy, open your eyes. There's so much more out there. You can have such a deeper impact working with attorneys in all practice areas.
Right. And I think it's important to go back to your point earlier where you basically said that a law firm owner has to basically be two different professions. They have to be a business owner in one profession, and then they have to be a lawyer in the other profession. And I think that differentiation is important because the lawyer part of it, and not to minimize what lawyers do and the legal profession, because that's not what I'm trying to do, but I'm going to say something that might get some people upset. The substantive law portion of what you do is the technician work. If you have ever read the book E-Myth by Michael Gerber, technicians are people who are the busy bees. They're the ones who do the work that is producing money for the business, but that's not the work of the business owner. And as much as you might like law, if you opened a law practice because you just wanted to practice law, you probably didn't do yourself justice in fulfilling that need, because you really need to run a law practice, which is a totally different job, a totally different hat to wear. And you can hire another attorney to do the legal work. As a matter of fact, you might even be able to hire somebody and find somebody who's better at it than you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a knock on you or your skill, but if you really want to build, and this is if you want to grow beyond solo, if you want to build a successful legal practice that is significant and growing in size, then you have to be willing to hand off the reins of that technical work so that you can focus on growing the business, which is a totally different set of skills, and which is where you referenced mindset a few times, and we did go into what you mean by that. But I think that's where it becomes challenging for law firm owners. You went to a number of years of school to learn how to be an attorney, but there was no conditioning to get you to be a business owner. And that's where that mindset piece comes in. So can you talk to us a little bit about what kind of mindset things are you talking about, and how does that affect the ability of the law firm owner to grow?
So I share your perspective 100%. If you entered law and are still of that mindset that you want to be a lawyer, and I'll remove my just that I was about to say, because it is not a bad thing. It's an honorable thing. But if that's your profession, you want to dabble, and you can make your $75,000 a year, and you can practice law all day and night for the rest of your life, and that's great. Some people want that. On the other hand, if you want to build a business that provides legal services, then you do need to look at the law in a different way. I happen to absolutely adore when I'm on a consultation, a strategy session, and someone says to me, you know what, I've been there, done that with the law. It's time for me to be the CEO of this firm, to provide the vision, to provide the mentoring. I want to build the business. I want to be out of the day-to-day. Like, that is super fun for me. They've been there, done that. They know how to do it. They can mentor someone else. They can make sure it's being done right. But they're also looking for leverage.
Yeah,
I'm always
absolutely.
looking for leverage. They're looking for leverage. And what I love about it is that along this journey of going from the person who does want to just file their divorce cases or their immigration or their whatever for the rest of their lives, and that brings them joy, and that's how they self-identify, okay. But if you want to be the owner of $1 million law firm or $2 million or $3 million law firm, you have to become the person who owns that $1 million plus law firm. So there's an evolution. There's an evolution, first of all, of just what's possible, right? Just what's possible out there. I think most people who are at that 75 under 100,000, 150 even level, they don't know. They don't understand. They have no idea how other attorneys are more financially successful. They don't understand what they're doing. They're just, it's something foreign to them.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a certain barrier, and if you worked for a paycheck, then you know this barrier well, which is once you earn a certain amount of money, you find that it's easy to find another job that's going to pay you that or better. Once you hit a certain threshold, you can make that money again. And it's, if you've only experienced earning 150,000, it's very hard to get to the point where you experience a million. But once you've experienced a million, you can do it over and over again. So somebody who's done it once before, their business can ultimately fail after that, and they can get there again fairly easily because they've removed that barrier. And all of that is just what you believe is possible, and therefore what steps and efforts you take to make that happen. Because the truth is that anything is possible, and if you can visualize it, you can believe it, you can envision it, then you'll take the right steps to get there.
That's spot on. You become a different person. You see opportunities in a different way. You see opportunities, right? When you're at that 75 and you don't even see the opportunities that someone at a million sees. It's not even just about being able to afford those opportunities. It's even knowing that they're there, recognizing them. Your mind is just not in a place to recognize those opportunities or to take risks, right? So lawyers have a lot of fear. And there's a difference between the fear tolerance of someone at a million and someone at 100,000.
Mm-hmm.
That the person at 100,000 has a much lower fear tolerance or risk tolerance, and the person at a million has a much higher one. And it's earned, it's developed, it's evolved over their learning and their time. I think another important thing is to learn from outside the law. Like you said, E-Myth, I've read the book, I know it, agree with it, use it. When those people at a lower level, and I'm using 75 or 100, it could be anything down, it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Those people are learning from other people in the same situation as them. They're looking only within the law, and they're looking at other people at their same levels. The people at $1 million are learning things that are outside the law, that aren't at their bar associations, that might come from consulting and coaching from people with experience outside the law. They're reading books outside the law. Their friends are outside the law. And it just opens, it's two different worlds. People are they can be in the same town. They could be offices next to each other, and they're experiencing two completely different worlds.
Yeah, it's so true. That you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, is a saying, and I don't know who that quote is from, but it's
Jim
so
Rohn.
true. What is it?
Jim Rohn.
Jim Rohn, thank you. So that quote from Jim Rohn is spot on. Where if you surround yourself with really highly successful people, you're going to be exposed to a different mindset. You're going to be exposed to a different way of being, and you're going to rise to that level naturally, and it's going to be that much easier. So you definitely need to look at who you're associating with. And it's not just in person. Like you said, I'm an avid reader of books. I think that reading books is a great way to get additional
Mm-hmm.
knowledge, to learn from other people's past, their mistakes, their lessons, and be able to do that yourself without needing to go through those iterations. The more that you consume, the more you know what not to do, as much as you know what to do. There can also be a lot of confusion around what to do, and you get instructions in different directions, and there's competing information. But definitely the things that are not working are things that you can learn from.
Absolutely. It's so important to be able to, whatever your goal is, let's just say it's $1 million. And that means a revenue of $1 million a year. So one of the things that I teach and do physically is I have retreats each year, because most of my work, I work with attorneys all over the country and sometimes Canada. That's virtual. But when we come together a few times a year, we have retreats. Those are all inclusive. So there's a private car service picking them up at the airport. They're staying at a luxury hotel. There's a private chef coming in and so forth. And the reason I do that is not only to learn whatever substantive topic that we're focused on, metrics and money mindset, and so on, but for them to learn how to be treated, to think, to act, to speak like $1 million attorney, to surround them in that, to make it normal, and have them get comfortable in a really nice hotel with a concierge and a beautiful lobby and so forth.
Yeah, a practice that I know works really well is, and this is a good barometer of knowing what level you're at when you're booking your airfare.
Yes.
You know, are you booking the cheapest economy ticket and
Yes.
worrying about whether your carry-on is going to be able to fit in the overhead, or are you splurging on yourself and just not even thinking about it and buying that first class seat and that priority check-in, and and just making sure that you have a streamlined and easy experience, and that you're not thinking about any of those other things. And there's a point in time at the beginning, you won't go for that ticket. Then you'll have this big, great deliberation about whether or not it's worth paying for that ticket. And then at some point, you're going to be in that position where you just don't think about it. That's just how I fly. This is how I fly. And then you just make those decisions. As a matter of fact, you get to the point where your assistant has instructions on how to book your flights. And there's never a place in that criteria to say, if it's X number of dollars over the economy, then buy me a first class ticket. It's just book a first class ticket. And that's just, it's a silly example, but it's not about wasting money. It's about what's important to you, and how you look at money and how you feel about money. And if you can't get to that place where you appreciate and find value in simplifying your life and making things really easy, smooth, and comfortable, and it being worth it, then you haven't arrived at that level yet.
Love it. I agree with all of that 100%. I fly first class. One of my mentors told me to fly first class, years ago. And at first it took me a long time to make that jump. But you know what? In all those things, in reducing stress, making it easy, that's all about also valuing yourself. Are you worth the extra, whatever, $500, $600 to fly first class? Yes. If you get there and you're relaxed and feeling good and feeling strong and ready to go, that's going to come back to you for sure.
Yeah. And this goes back to bigger questions like, when do I hire somebody? How do I wrap my head around hiring somebody and then redirecting all that money to that person? And the thing that earlier stage law firm owners don't recognize yet, and once you grow into that $1 million law firm, you start to realize how silly it was to spend all that time trying to figure that out, is that hiring people is what's going to get you there. The faster that you can hire somebody, the faster you can bring somebody on to do some of the things that you're doing and get it off your plate, the quicker you're going to make room for you to be doing higher level tasks. I'm not talking about you doing the technical work of being an attorney. I'm talking about you focusing on the growth of the business. And that's something that I see is a good indicator of somebody growing, is their willingness and ability to start bringing on that help and paying for that.
Well, nobody went to law school to be a secretary, right? I just made that statement in a room a couple of weeks ago. I taught at a bar association, and that got some looks, like the eyes open, there was some nodding, because there's a lot of fear of hiring. What if I can't pay that person? Well, you set it up so you can pay them. And if you can't, right, then you let them go to somewhere where they can be a rock star. So I've done an analysis, because I've talked to a lot of attorneys, right? And I found that attorneys can be doing 15 hours a week of administrative stuff that they don't need to be doing, that is way below their pay grade. You can't be, you got to look at your hourly billing rate And I know you can convert it to that even if you do contingent or flat fees. You know what you make per hour when you're working on a case. And then compare that to what you'd be paying a secretary. I mean, even conservatively, you make 300, you collect $300 for your hour, and a secretary or receptionist, admin, legal assistant makes 20 an hour. That's a difference of $280 an hour. I mean, that can be $100,000, $200,000 a year that you're missing out. And that's just, you're not out there building a business. You're not focused on your own growth. You're answering the phones and filling out forms and sending engagement agreements and opening files. Like it's just silly. It's silly. And these days, what's cool is there's just so much room to outsource and to hire part-time or get some kind of service. There are just opportunities available everywhere.
Yeah, we had at the Law Firm Growth Summit back in December, we had one of our sponsors was Law Clerk. Law Clerk
exactly.
matches the law firm with lawyers with specialties. So if you need somebody with a specific specialty who has room on their plate to take on work, and you can just bring them on for one specific matter or for one specific type of thing that, even if it's ongoing or recurring, you work that out. You can easily find somebody there. We had another guy on the podcast, Mr. Yassi. I got to look up the episode number, try to do it while we're talking. But he has a service where he uses, he provides internships, very short internships to law firm students. To law school students, and matches them to your needs. So if you need somebody to write a blog post for you, or you need somebody to do some research for you, you can have access to a law school student who is very capable of doing that. And you're getting, you might even be getting some really high caliber work, and it's really not costing you a whole lot. You're giving them an opportunity to build their resume, and you're getting that work done fairly inexpensively. I teach how to hire a virtual assistant overseas, how to hire a virtual assistant locally. There's so much room to bring on contractors, subcontractors for the specific things that you need. You don't even need to hire somebody full-time just because you want to get some of these things off your plate.
I love it. I did not know about the law students business. That's fabulous. Yeah.
I will find that podcast episode number, and we'll talk about it. When I do, we'll mention it again. All right. So I want to take a step back, because your company name is $1 Million Attorney. You mentioned something about revenue a moment ago. How do you define $1 million attorney, and is that the destination?
Okay. So the reason I use $1 Million Attorney is that it's sexy and attracts attention, right? And I've had people come up to me, I want to be $1 million attorney. Like literally just walk out, I want to be $1 million attorney. And I'm like, okay, let's have a conversation about it. The other reason I use $1 Million Attorney is because there is a tipping point that is at about that point where attorneys are freer. So what does money buy you? To me, money buys you freedom, right? Freedom to do the work you want to do, freedom to live the life that you want to live.
Right. Money is the tool. It's not money is not the freedom. It's the tool to
exactly.
get the freedom.
Right. It's freedom. You can pay other people to do the work you don't want to do. You can take the time that you want to have to be with your family. You can focus on your health, on your marriage, whatever it is. That is a tipping point. There's also a psychological barrier right before $1 million that is really interesting, because a lot of attorneys will do something to self-sabotage at that point. And when they can work through that and actually hit the $1 million, then they can hit 2 million, 3 million, 4 million. Like that, once you're like broke that barrier, then you have the mindset to move forward in whatever way you want. Do I require everybody that I work with to want to create $1 million firm? No. So what I do when people come to me, the first analysis is how much do you need to live the life you want, and how do you want to spend your time? So we design life first, and then we structure the law firm to serve and support that life. You know, it's not attorneys getting what's ever left over. It's not attorneys saying, like, following my strict path of this is the life that you want, telling them what they want. They get to choose. And a lot of that is counseling and what opportunities are available to them. Because a lot of people come to me with the attitude, Wendy, help me get more done. And typically I can say, well, you should actually be doing less. And let's talk about what that might look like. Does that appeal to you?
Yeah, one of our most recent episodes, I don't know when this one will be released, so I can't say, oh, it was last week, but episode 64 is titled No More Weekends. And
right.
I recorded that episode because I was doing a series of free coaching sessions, and I was finding a common denominator amongst quite a few of the people that I was talking to. And like, one of the things that was really important to them was to free themselves up on the weekend. And I was blown away by the fact that this is actually happening. And, you know, working on the weekend is a choice that you make. You don't have to be successful to be able to say no to working on the weekend. As a matter of fact, Parkinson's law dictates that given a finite resource, our consumption of that resource is going to expand to consume the entire resource. So if you give yourself more time to get things done, it's going to take you longer to do them. By giving yourself less time, you're going to force yourself to just do them faster and manage to find a way to make it happen. People who are working on the weekends probably are also doing things right before their deadline. So if you recognize that that's happening, then just move the deadline back. You know, like, create a new deadline that's earlier, and it'll happen faster. You know, we managed to make that work and make it happen. The podcast episode I was referring to was episode number 35, and it's titled Getting an Intern Even If You Can't Afford It with Reza Yassi. So I invite you to go back and listen to that, and I'll link that up in the show notes for anybody who's listening to this wants us to link that up for you. You can also go to profitwithlaw.com/035. Any episode / the episode number, you'll get there. So, Wendy, that's perfect. That I get that $1 Million Attorney is just a name, but I was just wondering if there's something magical happens at $1 million. And you basically shared with us that no, it has to do with what life do you want to design. In your experience, is there like a certain amount of take-home pay that becomes the game changer? Like, when on average, I know everybody's situation is different and where they live is different, but is there like a certain level that when they hit that level, there's just a certain release of anxiety and a certain relaxation that happens because they've finally got to that point where they're not worrying about tomorrow?
It's an interesting question. I have not observed that because of expectations. So my clients have different expectations. So some are really happy. Oh, I hit 400 this year, first time, double, thank you so much. Others are like above $1 million, and they're like, no, we're going to get to 2 million this year. Like, it's just, and then the expectations and lifestyles often evolve. Because I remember when I thought $100,000 was so much money, and now it's like, well,
and now you realize that $1 million is not really that much money.
Right. Well, you know what? That's interesting you say that, because like when I grew up watching $6 Million Man. So the Bionic Man, he was Steve Austin, the astronaut. Do you remember that show?
I did not watch that show. We can talk about how my sheltered upbringing was, but there was no TV in my house.
Gotcha. But back then in the 70s, when the $6 Million Man, NASA had to pay $6 million to save his life because he was in an astronaut accident, and that was so much money back then. And I remember in the 70s, if somebody made $1 million in their lifetime, that would have been a lot of money. But now not too many people are retiring, even if they have $1 million in assets. So now it's just, things have evolved, thinking has evolved, the cost of living has evolved. People, even in the United States, what we think is a normal way of life has evolved.
Right.
But it goes back to when I was an estate planning attorney too. I remember having clients who had 150,000 and had lived through the Depression and just couldn't believe that they had that much money saved. Like, they were at peace.
Mm-hmm.
The next hour walks in a couple that has their own business and they have 14 million and they're nervous and worried it's not going to be enough. There's like just a whole psychology.
Right. It all goes back to the mindset discussion,
Yeah,
right? So
it does. It does.
it's how you view money. It's how you value it. It's what emphasis you put on it. Ultimately, like, people say, I just want to be happy, right? When I talk to them and they're like, I want my law firm to be successful because I want to be happy. And happiness is something you can decide to have today. You can be working hard to get your law firm to be successful and not view it as successful today. And you can still choose to be happy. So money doesn't buy happiness, and that's not a cliche saying. The reality is that there's a ton of people out there who, when they finally get to the other end and they have all the money, it's buying them flexibility, it's buying them toys, but it's not going to help make them happy. Ultimately, if you're not happy, you're just not going to be happy no matter what your situation. So you have to really get clear on your state of being and just choose to be satisfied and happy with where you're at. And then there's nothing wrong with aiming for something greater, but there's no reason to not enjoy the process getting there.
Happiness always comes first. You have to decide to be happy. You can decide. You have the power to decide to be happy. You're 100%. And then what that does is it makes getting to success easier. You're putting out good energy. You're putting out your faith that that when you take the actions you need to take, the universe provides. You've been okay up to this point. You're going to continue to be okay. You're continuing to prosper. When you watch the interviews with anyone who is mega successful, they decided to be happy first, and then the success came.
Yeah, absolutely. There are people who are mega successful who are miserable, right? And it's obvious when you're looking at them. You're right. The ones that are happy in their successful state, their happiness came first. There's definitely people who are miserable when they're successful, and it shows. And that's why we hear so much about people who, celebrities especially, who end up turning to drugs and perhaps dying early or younger than they should have, because they didn't find happiness at the top, because happiness isn't at the top. Happiness is everywhere along the way.
Well, then we have the discussion of what success means.
Mm-hmm.
Because,
absolutely.
Right, but when you're giving those examples, I mean, who's popping into our minds. And that's, even though someone can hold a very high position and they can appear to have money and power, what is success? So I guess that's something that we really define for ourselves. For me, success is spending my time the way I want to spend it. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does. And you know what I tell people is that you get to choose whether something is a success or not.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, when you view something as a failure in business, you tried something and you quote unquote failed, you actually succeeded, right? So you succeeded in not getting the result that you thought you were going to get. You got a different result. It's not a failure.
Right.
It's you actually got a lesson. You learned something new, and you learned what not to do, or something that is not going to work. Like everything that you try, everything that you do, as long as you're taking action, is actually a success. So I try to stay away from that word successful, because we're all successful every single day. If you didn't put effort in, and you're trying to become a better person, version of yourself every day, and you didn't put enough effort in, then you didn't become as better a person as you wanted today. but you were successful in exactly what you tried to do because you didn't try so hard. So you were successful in getting a mediocre result, right? So, that's the interesting thing about that word success is, it definitely is how you view it. And you can choose to view everything as a success and take the word failure out of your vocabulary.
This is a valuable conversation. And I'm thinking about, deciding part of success or happiness is also deciding your purpose or the purpose of life. So I recently saw a documentary, and I believe it was called The Factory. It was on Netflix, and it was about um, Chinese billionaire coming in, I think Detroit, and making like car glass. And he was a billionaire. He was doing all these things. It was interesting to see the difference in the cultures. But at the end, he was very shockingly forthcoming. And he says, have I failed? He's a billionaire.
Mm-hmm.
Have I failed? Have I added to the problems of our society? Have I harmed the environment? He misses the time when he was just a young boy and he'd be playing in the fields and he remembers the flowers. And then he said, but isn't the purpose of life to work? And I'm like, whoa, you know what? Your happiness level is really going to be determined by what you think the purpose of life is, or the purpose of your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know what? It's so profound. And there's a book that I love. I quote it all the time. It's by Michael Hyatt and Daniel Harkavy, and it's called Living Forward. And the book is about recognizing that you're just drifting along and you're not actually making any progress towards the destination of what life is all about. And one of the exercises that they have you do in that book, and it's so powerful, I actually have my coaching clients do it, and that's the eulogy exercise. And you write your own eulogy. And the purpose of the exercise is when you're writing your own eulogy, it really makes you think about, okay, what do I want people to talk about when I die? Like, what was the impact that I made in my life here? And if I'm not comfortable with what I'm writing, if I'm not satisfied with what I'm writing, then I need to change the script. I need to write something different. And once you know what you want to have in your eulogy, then you can try and aim for that. But until then, you might just be taking life as it goes and just letting it guide you, whichever which way the current is going at the time. And that's not going to get you to a happy ending. You're going to be there on your deathbed and be having regrets. Why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do that? So this is a really powerful exercise to bring out and highlight what's important to you. And some people, it's philanthropic. I want to change hunger in Africa. And then, some people, I just want to be a good parent, grandparent, and have, happy children and, who are loving and caring. Everybody's different, and you get to define that. Like, that's the beauty of this whole thing, is you get to choose what your destination is, but you have to choose. You have to have a destination. And that's, that translates back to your law firm. Like, where does that fit into the puzzle? And what is the purpose of it? For some people, you might be a women's rights activist and your law firm is your platform to make that happen. For other people, you want to do things that are going to cost money, and the law firm is simply a tool to create that money. And, you have to get really clear on what that is, because it changes what role you're playing in the process and what your goals are for the firm. Is it a financial goal, or is it an impact goal, or is it a combination of the two? And getting clear on that is so important, because otherwise, just like life, if you just let things happen, then they're just going to be exactly that. They're just going to be happening for you.
You know what? I applying that concept, I think it makes life easier, because choices are coming at you all the time. Should I do this or this? Should I do this or this? Well, which is going to get me closer to the outcome I want? Which is in line with my mission? Something might seem very interesting, but if it's going to take you off track, then that needs to be a no. It needs to be a lot of no's so you can say yes to your mission and that outcome, which is, in your example, the eulogy. That's the outcome you're creating. And then, okay, so now you have me thinking here, this is fun. So I use the formula E plus R equals O. So I learned that from Jack Canfield, and that is an event is happening. An event happens, so that could be the weather, the political administration, a pandemic.
Coronavirus.
Right, yeah, exactly, right? And then you get to pick your reaction to that, your response, and that creates the outcome you want. So like you're saying, okay, the eulogy in this example would be the outcome. You want certain things said about your legacy. So then you need to be able to respond in the way that will get you to the O in that formula.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so if you're using a formula, then you got to get the R over onto the other side of the equal sign, right? So the event minus your outcome equals your response.
Right. Sure.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that's it's actually pretty. It's simple and it's profound at the same time. Like, I mean, you look at the stock market today. The stock market, I mean, today it's going up, but last week we had the biggest drop in the Dow in a single week in history because of reactions to the coronavirus. And that's just it just highlights human behavior, right? When somebody reacts negatively, it affects the person next to them. They react negatively, and it creates this snowball effect where everyone is reacting in a negative fashion. The people who are choosing their reaction and are holding their ground and are becoming buyers at the time that everyone else is sellers, recognizing that this too shall pass, they're the ones who are going to benefit and profit from this event, in that example in the stock market. But we turn around and apply this in your law firm. You get to react about how things are happening around you. I had somebody who was telling me that the environment in their state is changing. They're a divorce attorney. The environment in the state is changing. Less and less people are getting divorced. And I said, really? Like, even if it's true, so the pie is smaller, you got to now go out there and take a bigger piece of the pie. Like, you have to choose how to react to the situation. You can choose to use it as an excuse for your lack of success in your goals, or you can say, okay, how am I going to take more of this? How am I going to make sure that I am the person that everyone's going to, because there's less people that are going and doing this. So choosing your reaction, I love that.
Absolutely. And one thing to combine what we were talking about earlier is what I found really useful is when you meditate as part of your daily wellness practice in whatever form you want, sitting silently, following a guided meditation from YouTube, whatever works for you, is that meditation gives you a beat before you react. So what I've noticed in myself and my clients, instead of a knee-jerk reaction, I mean, we're all humans. Sometimes it happens. We're like, something happens, and we're like, rawr. The lion in us comes out. But when you learn, and I think meditation is a good way to do that, to have that pause, you have more power to choose your response. I mean, you can choose how you think. You can choose the images in your head. You can choose your words, your tone, your actions. All those things you can control. And when you realize that, when you can realize you control the O in that formula, the outcome, by choosing your response, it's very powerful. You're not a victim. You get to choose what happens. You get to choose how it plays out.
And we could be going into a realm that we can spend hours on this. But the what's the word I'm looking for? When you think about something that's going to happen and then it comes true. Manifestation. Sorry.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So, the art of manifestation, or the law of manifestation, and people will say, oh, that it doesn't really work. The movie The Secret kind of made it more public, but the way manifestation happens, or at least the way that I believe it happens or see it happen, is that your ability to accomplish something is already there. The manifestation is you believing that you can do that, so that you actually set out and take the right steps to get there.
Mm-hmm.
Another way to look at it is, if you can clearly see the end, then you can easily see the route you took to get there. In other words, you can look back and you can say, this is what I had to do, and this is what I had to stop doing in order to get there. And that clarity is going to create that path of success for you. Which is why I actually got into, and this is weird because, my background's accounting. I'm a very factual spreadsheet person. And I sat in a coaching, a group coaching session, and somebody did a visualization exercise with us. And I played along, and it actually worked. And it really turned me on to visualizations, which is a little bit different than meditation, but same concept. And it really helps give clarity. It helps you go into something being sure and knowing what direction you need to take. So if you're not into meditation and visualization, stuff like that, definitely think that you should give it a try, and a real try, because it could be something that's going to help propel you forward, and really keep you centered and on track to where you want to go.
So let's talk about that for a little bit, because I'm actually currently writing a TED Talk on emotionally charged visualization.
Mm-hmm.
And the background that I have from my research, and even in my own life, think about athletes. Athletes do this all the time. They've been doing it for decades. So, and everybody's comfortable with that. Everybody knows it. The Olympic star preparing for the Olympics, that person is picturing themselves on, the American flag going up, on the standing with the gold medal around their neck. They're picturing their gymnastics routine or their race. And they're seeing themselves as already having achieved that. They're know what leg they're going to lift when. It's all orchestrated. It's all in their mind's eye. And when they're visualizing it, they're feeling that feeling. They're hearing the crowd. They're seeing themselves there. All those things, and their performance improves. My husband was a college football player. And he used to do visualization before his games, as he was stretching and warming up. And he broke 6 university records.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, it works. It's common in the field of athletics, but I love that I'm starting to see it break out. They teach you when you're public speaking, go see the room, see yourself in the room, see a standing ovation, so forth. It's the same thing. You can do it for law firms. You can do it in relationships. You can do it for public speaking.
Yeah, absolutely. And the key is, it's easier if you have a guided visualization. Maybe that's an area that that we can develop something for law firm owners, but you can even do this yourself. And the visualization is best with, closing your eyes, clearing your head, and just, visualizing that thing. But it also works with a vision board, or,
Mm-hmm.
So I know somebody who, he wanted a specific car that was very, very expensive. He put a picture of the car on the visor in his vehicle, right? So every time he got in the driver's seat and he pulled that visor down, he was looking at that car. And he just looked at it every day. And it was maybe a year and a half later, he was driving that vehicle. And that forced visualization also works.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want a certain lifestyle, if you want a certain house, if you want these things, figure out a way to portray that in pictures or words and put it on a board, and make sure you're looking at it every day. And that's going to create that visualization for you. There's science behind it, the reticular activating system, and all that stuff. We could try to go into the technicalities of why it works or why it doesn't work. But the reality is that if you do that, you're much more likely to get the result that you want than if you're not doing that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you know what, it's again, it's seeing opportunities. It's seeing opportunities and bringing those opportunities to you. So you buy a new car. Last summer I bought a Tesla. I didn't see a lot of Teslas in my community until I bought that Tesla. Now I'm driving around and there are Teslas everywhere, and people are waving at me. There's like a little Tesla club that they're all nice to each other, which is beautiful. But yeah, I didn't really notice them before that, right? It's
Yeah,
the same thing. You're thinking you're
exactly.
dyeing your hair a certain color. There's all of a sudden there's 3 people with that hair color or so forth. It's
I've never considered dyeing my hair a different color. But
so
I
yeah.
totally get what you're saying, and it's so true. And it doesn't you definitely know if you ever bought a car or thought about buying a car, that's definitely something where you can see proof of this process, because you start to see it everywhere. And your Tesla experience is a good example of that. Wendy, we're getting short on time. I did want to ask you two key questions, so I want to cover those questions real quick, and then we can wrap this up. First question. What do you see as the biggest challenge that law firm owners are having when you're encountering them, when they're coming to you?
Fear. 100% fear. Their fear of doing something different, their fear of looking stupid, their fear of failing, their fear of investing and spending money. It's probably universal for humans, but especially attorneys. Some of the work I do with my clients is to remove the filter that law school installed on all of us to our detriment. Once you go through law school, you see everything that could go wrong in the world. You see your kid on a swing and your mind goes to lawsuit. You see your mother didn't shovel her sidewalk yet and it snowed, lawsuit. Like, you can't live life. I obnoxiously used to say to my husband, because my husband likes to be thorough and take his time to, changing my wording here, to explain something. And I used to say, Joe, bottom line it. Oh my God. I don't know how he ever lived with me. Like you just always want the bottom line. We want to avoid risk. In real life, you just can't live that way. And rest assured that as you move through that, you're not losing your edge as a lawyer, right? You can still analyze cases and see, where you have an advantage or where you need to make up for something or show the facts in a different light and so forth. If you can see the world as positive and what can go right in the joy and the assurance that things do work out for your highest and best good, you will be light years ahead. Light years.
Yeah, and the funny thing about fear is that fear is absolutely 100% emotional, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
completely on the emotional side of our brain. But if you think about it logically for even a minute, you start to realize how stupid it is,
Mm-hmm.
right? Your fear of failure or fear of how people are going to perceive you, right? Think about that logically. Like, who cares? Who cares how people think about you? Who cares if you fail? So
Right. Right.
you get up, you dust yourself off, and you try again. When you were learning to ride a bike, did anybody care how many times you fell?
Right. Or
Ultimately, you
learning,
ended up learning
right.
how to ride the bike.
Or walk.
Yep.
Did any of us give up when we fell down 1,000 times? No.
Right. And did
Yeah.
we care at how ridiculously silly we looked when we were falling and we were, or even kids who are already walking, you see them full on running and oh my gosh, there's no
Yes.
balance there. They're about to go flying. And you could just watch the train wreck, but they don't care. They just get back up. We can learn a ton from babies, but that's a
Oh
whole
yeah.
nother discussion. Yeah, I love that you chose that, and it's so true, because that's not necessarily what people are presenting as their symptom, but that's the underlying problem, right? So
Always.
often they'll come and say, "This is my problem. This is my problem." But if you dig a little bit deeper, it's really just masked Fear.
Mm-hmm.
It's,
Mm-hmm.
it's fear that's causing it. Great. So my last question to you, and then we'll just give you an opportunity to share how people can learn more about you and continue their journey with you. What is your number one, if you had to give one piece of advice to a law firm owner who's listening to this podcast and obviously wants to grow their firm and make it more, this is Profit with Law, right? Make it more profitable.
Mm-hmm.
What's the number one piece of advice that you would share with them, only being allowed one thing?
Personal development precedes financial success. You have to work on who you are as a person. And when you do that, you will make more money. And along the way, you'll learn the business skills to have more profit.
Awesome. Love it. Love it. Wendy, this was a lot of fun. A great conversation. Totally went in a direction I would have never predicted, which is why I don't like pre-scripting any of these. I love when the conversation just flows and goes where it needs to go. So this is what we needed to talk about, and this is what people needed to hear. And it's gonna be a great episode, and it'll be out soon. So why don't you share with everybody where they can find you, follow you, get in touch with you, and anything else that you want to give them?
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. So check out the opportunities at $1,000,000attorney.com, $1,000,000attorney.com. And if you want to shoot me an email, wendy@1,000,000.com. And I'm very active on LinkedIn and sharing a lot of articles there for the community.
Okay, just to confirm, because I think you said Wendy@1,000,000.com. It's Wendy@1,000,000attorney.com, correct?
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. All right, well, there you have it, folks. Wendy, thank you so much for joining us. And this was a great conversation. I think we're going to have to chat again at some point. Hopefully we'll find some things that are aligned the next time that we do a virtual summit and have you on as a speaker. I'd love to cover some more of the mindset stuff that you talk about and that you work on with your clients. So and I love that's something that's important to you and that you're working on. It's not something that we find a lot in the practice management coaching, the business strategist side of growing law firms. Not a lot of people are working on that. So it's good to see somebody who's doing that as well.
That sounds great. I look forward to working with you and making our dent in the universe and attorney wellness and profit.
Awesome. So folks, go out there, take some action, purposeful action towards your goals. Go get the book Living Forward. Go through the exercises. Get really clear on what it is that you want. Get really clear on where you want your life to take you. And don't just let life happen to you, but instead take life by the horns and make it purposeful, make it happen. And you know what? If going through those exercises means that owning a law firm or being a lawyer is not for you, that's fine too. Like I have a circle of friends who used to be attorneys and now are doing other things. And I'm not in any way trying to push anybody in that direction, but be open and honest with yourself. Like, it's okay if this was a detour that is going to get you to the next step, but the next step is not exactly where you are now. But if it is, if your law firm is the route to get you to where you want to go, then start to get really, really clear and intentional on what it is and where you want to go, so that you can follow that plan and not just allow things to happen to you and for you. That's it for this week's episode of Profit with Law. If you have enjoyed the show, please consider sharing it with at least one person. Imagine how many lives we can change if we each shared this episode. Another way to share the episode is on social media. We appreciate your support and look forward to you joining us again next week.